Good evening, and thank you for joining us for our first February podcast. We are loving on the Black man for Black History Month and the month of love. I am joined this evening by Dr. Patrick Thompson. He is the Chief Healing Officer for the Whole Kingdom Wellness, and Dr. Brian Turner, who is pinch hitting from his car. He is in traffic because he's just that important. He didn't leave work on time, but he showed up on time. So I'm grateful for him. And he is the associate professor and department head of psychology at Xavier University in, wait, let me get this right, New Orleans. Did I get that right?
Close.
Close?
Yeah, you get it.
We started this call and our prep call by saying that we were going to give grace and mercy across the board. So I'm going to ask grace on my pronunciation of New Orleans, okay? Are we good there?
Let's do it.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Thank you for joining me. How are you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
You doing well.
Hanging in there. So I'm going to ask you, Brian, to be safe on the road. I know you're here with us, and I'm grateful for it. But please be safe as you're driving the rest of the way home. I want to give you guys an opportunity to just come in and just tell us a little bit about yourselves. And I'm going to start with Patrick. Tell us a little bit of your backstory, Patrick.
Well, born and raised in New Orleans, son of a pastor and a teacher, introduced to a lot of social advocacy and things of that nature, faith movements in communities as a child. Went to an HBCU for college and seminary, medical school. So I'm a physician and a pastor as well. Currently, I'm a chief healing officer at Whole Kingdom Wellness, where I do naturopathic medical consultations, and I am very much active in doing faith and health initiatives in communities. And I just love to help people. I'm a health enthusiast, natural medicine enthusiast. I am a how can I say an aficionado of sangria. And, so I'm a self-proclaimed aficionado of sangria, and born and raised in New Orleans. Came back to New Orleans about 3 years ago. Been in a variety of cities, so glad to be here.
All right, and Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh man, look, I am glad to be here, sis. Thank you, Kim, for inviting me and my brother. We are repping also the best, the first, and the finest. So A5A to the day I die. That's how we gonna ride.
Sir.
I am Brian Turner. I'm a son of New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm a graduate. I'm a graduate of Isidore Newman High School. I'm a graduate of Southern University in Baton Rouge. I'm a graduate of Jackson State University. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist practicing here in Moments of Truth, my operation where I conduct therapy with family, couples, and individuals, do consultation, evaluations, program reviews, just a gambit. I came into this way because growing up in New Orleans, I would catch the bus from East Shore, Little Woods, New Orleans, all the way uptown, traversing the city during what was probably the most tumultuous time when it was murder capital. And I would see Black folks in my neighborhood struggling to figure out what to do every day. I would touch down at Isidore Newman High School, and I would see my classmates and people along the way who did not look like me, who were white, and they seemed to be struggling with the same thing. And so by way of that experience, I found my way into psychology because I realized I wanted to help people in all earnestness figure out how to have the life that they want every day. So that's what I hope to be able to do as I do this work, as we had this conversation. I want to have some fun. And as we talked the other night, I want to do some edutainment. So I want to educate, but I also want to have some fun.
All right, I'm with you. And you have a 6-year-old daughter, correct? Brian? Can you hear me?
The light of my life, the heart of my hearts, my heart in the flesh. Shout out to my little mama. It is Mardi Gras time, so I gotta be in parade mode. So yeah, shout out to my little princess, Claire Layla.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So both of you were born and raised in New Orleans, and like Brian mentioned, you said it was the murder capital of the world at one point. Tell us a little bit about what growing up there was like. I think you guys have a great story, especially because though you have gone outside of New Orleans, you have chosen to come back and to pour your gifts, talents, and your education back into your community. So, Patrick, tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in New Orleans and what
Mhm.
started to kind of cultivate and pave your way.
Well, New Orleans is a very unique place. We talked about a little bit offline. The uniqueness of the cultures. When you got French, Spanish, you got Native American, you got African, in this beautiful gumbo of people. But I got to tell you, it was certainly still, the Deep South. Um, I had the opportunity to go to some really pretty good schools in the city. I know Brian mentioned he went to Isidore Newman. I went to Benjamin Franklin High School, which is still considered to be one of the best public high schools in the city, and been nationally ranked for a long time. In terms of its college acceptance and academics and things of that nature. And so I had some privilege to do that. But at the same time, when you look at neighborhoods, you look at the socioeconomics, particularly for those who are fairer skinned. I mean, you saw some huge divides in the city when it came to that. For me, I mean, I grew up in a middle class neighborhood. We didn't have a lot of crime per se, in our neighborhood, and there was some pride in the neighborhood and things of that nature. But I got to tell you, for me, but I also had relatives who lived in some places that were not so great, who had great representations of what we would call the elements, if you will. And
Mhm.
so I was able to really see both sides of that. I went to school with people who were the children of bank presidents, the children of senators, the children of movers and shakers in the city. But my father was a pastor in a lower income neighborhood, and so I was able to see both of those things, and the vibe between and then the wealth gap in the city. And I saw, I felt even then, the pains of what it was like to grow up, being thought less than. I can remember when I was a kid in the fifth grade, I was tested for the gifted program,
Mhm.
and I wasn't in the first time going to public school. What and I remember that day. We was all excited because you got to go to resource class. That was the smart kids,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
never forget the day that I did. The day I had taken my test and everything, and I qualified for the gifted program. And when I
Mhm.
stood up with the rest of the children, they told me that there must be some mistake.
Wow.
And there was and the crazy thing was, it was a black man that told me that, right? And so and so those sort of things shape people's mentalities,
Mhm.
and even against each other, and I can remember being stopped by police even as a child. And I uh being stopped police on a half day. I was walking through a neighborhood that was predominantly Jewish, and they stopped me, maybe open my backpack, maybe open my instrument, maybe open my gym bag as if I stole something from my house,
Mhm.
you know. Um, and so, but at the same time, I gotta say, while I saw some crazy things and experienced some things that were really harsh racism, not from what I heard from somebody, but from what I experienced myself.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
gotta tell you that one of the things that helped me to get through, because I still saw in my neighborhood and in my church, and in some of my family members, black men who were strong and resilient.
Mm.
I still saw some men who were able to fight through all of that kind of stuff and still become examples for me. Men who, and that I found out later on were men of the fraternity that I ended up joining,
Mhm.
and people who I looked up to, in my own. And so this is one of the reasons why I do one of the things I do. One of the reasons why I mentor. One of the things why I moved back to my city,
Mhm.
because I know that there's young men and young women who need me to be there to fight through, to help them to get through.
All right. So Brian is off camera right now. He's transitioning from
Right.
one device to the next. I'm glad he made it home safely. So I'm going to ask you to share, what's your best childhood memory?
My best childhood memory. But I think one of my favorite childhood memories is probably for my 12th birthday, my father, for my birthday, he got me a ride on a little small plane. I was at the time I was infatuated with that, something like that, and he was able to work out where for my birthday I got to ride in the airplane from the lakefront airport, and I was just fascinated me sitting in the cockpit with the pilot, and I had the audacity to ask him if I could actually fly. And in my mind, I thought I was going to fly and land the plane, and so I almost see that metaphorically now as something um, that looking at some experiences in my life, helped me to, people, pushed and invested in me, helped me push my rises higher than I even thought. I was raised with higher expectations, but yeah, that's probably one of my favorite childhood memories. Being able to do that, and have that experience.
All right. I like it. I like it. My son, my 17-year-old is also used to really be interested in planes as well. And for 4 or 5 years, he had the opportunity to do lessons with a Cessna. I went up once. It's not my thing, but he really enjoyed it. Who's the most important person in your life?
The most important person in my life. Oh man, do you like maybe somebody who's influential, really influential in that sense, or
As you were growing up, who was the most important person in your life?
well, my mother probably gonna be upset with me at this, but I probably had to say my father.
Okay.
He's probably one of the most patient people I know in the world.
Mm-hmm.
He was somebody who's poured into me, and he didn't do it with any expectation of any being, a payback or anything like that. He is he was always somebody who was an encourager. He
Mm-hmm.
taught me how to do a lot of different things. And he was somebody I really look up to and do the same and do look up to even today. In fact, there are moments I remember when I was a kid where I would literally try to walk in the same strides that we were walking down the sidewalk. I'd be trying to walk the same strides. I'd be trying to walk in the same footsteps that he'd be doing. And so, as I am in my adult life now, there's so many times I can hear his voice saying things, and me at this point saying, "Man, you know what? I think I finally understand what he was talking about." One of the things he would tell me is, there's a difference between a boy and a man. He would say that, and
Mm-hmm.
I understood that. I understood him, but the words, right? But as I got older, I understood that a little bit more. One of the other things he would say to me often, he would say, "Youth is wasted on the young." And I'm not trying to talk bad about younger generations, but I mean I understand what he meant by that time, and I look at as I think back earlier in my life, I said, man, what was I thinking? Like I should have done X, Y, and Z. But yeah, I would definitely say my father.
Okay. So Brian, welcome back. Welcome back. Tell me your best childhood memory, Brian. I want to hear it.
Check one, check one. Can you hear me?
I certainly can.
But that just have to make sure I move devices properly. So yeah, my best childhood memory probably was my opportunity to go to Isidore Newman. And so similar to Patrick, I was tested for gifted program and did well in that. And my mom loved her to death, but we were struggling when I got to Newman, right? We were not doing well. She had been recently laid off
Mm-hmm.
from her job. She wasn't working. But what Newman did in terms of best memory was it put me in a space with kids who didn't look like me. And the narrative had been for so long that we wouldn't fit, that I wouldn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
And what I got to see was that I fit. It showed me that I could do and be wherever I wanted to be as long as I put myself in the best situation. So that was my best kind of in that moment. But other than that, it was in New Orleans, it's food. You know what I mean? So it was the holidays where we're in the kitchen and my mom, she whipping up a seafood dressing for Thanksgiving. It's me and my brother my oldest brother, when we started frying turkeys. And so that went from me and him frying one turkey on Thanksgiving when I was about 16, 17 to now. Most Thanksgiving, we might fry up to 20 turkeys for family and friends and folks. So that's the, you know, kind of dichotomy, or the kind of symbiotic relationship between best memories. Like Newman gave me a you can do this, right? It showed me that respect can be had for anybody, but Black folks can do anything we want, especially Black boys. Oh,
I agree with that
Yeah.
100%. But I know one of the things that we often talk about is making decisions about school, right? Whether or not, especially trying to keep our Black men and boys grounded in our culture, but surrounding them with individuals that don't look like us. How did you maintain your Black pride in a space where you weren't seeing your reflection?
Oh, I mean, for me, it was easy. My mom grounded me in who I was critically. So, as we sit here with Black History Month, and I said I was going to throw my little plug out there, was that if we're honest about it, that was a part of the whole initiative around Black History Month, was that we took time and we made sure that we did what we were supposed to do in terms of knowing who we were. So part of me wanting to be smart was that I learned as a little boy that Black folks been intelligent. Like when we go all the way back to Africa, to Imhotep, the first physician, right?
Yes, sir.
He wasn't just a physician. He was a philosopher. He was an educator. He was a scientist, right? When we think about the reality of really what we present ourselves as, is that, like, I realized, wait a minute, there's a space for me where I can be great. And so I was grounded in who I was long before I got here. I knew that I could be great. I understood I could be great. And so it became very easy to be me, right? As I got to Newman and beyond, and many spaces where I would look around, I was the only Black face, or only African American. It became easy for me to be me, because I was like, oh, I got this. You know, there is no way where I can't be me. There is no way for me not to be comfortable with being who I am, because I understood the language.
And then what would you say to the parent who says, why can't we do just that in the same way at a predominantly Black school? Either one of you.
Can you repeat that again?
What would you say to the parent who will then ask, why can't we do just what Brian just described? Why can't we do that at a predominantly Black school and have representation around us?
Well, I mean, I think, I think you can. I think you can instill that inside in an HBCU, or whatever, a Black school in that sense. I think that if you can show a kid, whether regardless of what that environment is, if you can show them that who they are is not deficient, that who they are is not inferior, that who they are is not the least, then and you can put that inside of them, and they'll know. I mean, I can look at myself, for an example. I mean, I throughout my life, I've gone to some schools that were mostly white. Well, my high school was mostly white. My junior high school was mostly Black. My elementary school was mostly white. My college was mostly Black. So I think if you can instill that in somebody when they're young and begin to, when I was a kid, my parents, my family, my people, they always told me I was smart. They told me that, right? So there was nothing that nobody could tell me. Once they had convinced me of that. So when I was a young kid, and so when I got around other people, I walked into things and be like, hey, I mean, and you gotta understand, especially me going in certain, environments that were mostly white, they tried to push against that. I can remember catching the school bus in the 4th grade, and I went to it was a predominantly white Christian school, and those kids gave me hell on the bus, from the bus all the way through. They they just said things that spoke to their understanding of that I was inferior to them. And I took it as a challenge, because I had been taught that was the opposite. I took it as a challenge. They can say all this stuff, and I'm about to show them. I'm about to show them who's gonna get the best grades.
Right.
Show them who's the one that's going to excel, and and that was going to speak for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we're seeing today is, so many children who are not getting that affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting it, and so what they're learning about themselves is what's being said in our society.
Right.
And so we're wondering why they're acting a certain way is because they're not being grounded in really who they are. They're being told that they're not as smart, and so they act like that. They're being told that they're inferior, so they act like that. They're being told that they can't X, Y, and Z. You can put the blank. You can't X, Y, and Z, and they act that way. So we have to make sure, and we need to make sure that we're instilling in them those things and showing them. Brian talking about, hey, Black History Month. We need to show them, hey, some bunch of this stuff that you think was was made by people who look like you, were made by Black people. And one of the things, being in medicine, I mean, I've taught in different medical venues, and I've had to say to them, hey, Hippocrates wasn't the father of medicine, right? And they was looking at me like, I said, have you ever heard of Imhotep? Oh, no. Well, I'm so glad you asked, right? And I heard the opportunity to share that. And there's a lot of things in our culture and for our people that people just don't even know.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. It sounds like you guys were affirmed as children. So when you went out into the world and had to navigate these spaces, you seemed pretty grounded. But Brian, on a side note, I'm from Harlem. You're not. And so I have a separate question. You mentioned dressing. Tell me what the difference between stuffing and dressing is.
Y'all don't do it right. Y'all don't do it right. So in New Orleans, it's what it is. Like, but our reality is that our thing is gonna have a little bit different flavor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Y'all don't season it the same. Y'all don't add that little thing that we put into it, right?
Mm.
So a good seafood dressing in New Orleans, we're gonna have some oysters, some shrimp, maybe some gizzards. We're gonna have a little something else. We're gonna have a little seafood stock, not just some chicken broth, right? But it's something you gotta come and get a taste for. I tell anybody, come in, taste the city. Once you taste the city, you won't want to leave.
All right. So, I tasted it 3 times, 4 times already, and I came back. But it's all good. We're gonna move on.
So you keep coming back, is what you're saying. See that? There it is. Look, tell the truth. Tell the truth. Grace and love is how we lead, right? So one of the things, and when you talked about having this conversation, and understanding the mission of the work y'all are doing for Moms of Black Boys, for MOBB, one of the things that becomes keen for me, for us, I think, to point out is that it's our community's responsibility to do this, right? Mm-hmm. What's going on politically in the day and age, we see what's happening. That there are political and social forces, right? Mm-hmm. Social political forces that are inherently set to diminish the impact of Black men, right? So I have to challenge parents, mm-hmm. aunts, uncles, grandparents, mm-hmm. right? Public Enemy said a long time ago, turn off their radio, right? We got to turn off the social media, right? Mm. And not that you can't enjoy it all. Me and my pastor, my bishop, we talk about this all the time. There's nothing wrong with social media when you're using it for right. But if you're not monitoring your child's utilization of any resource, it's going to be perverted by someone at some point in time. And if you're not involved or engaged, it will take over them, right? But these tools, right, we have in our hands, it is so easy to look up Imhotep, the first Black physician, right? The first Black doctor. It's so easy to look up notable persons in Black history that's very easy. And so what I oftentimes try to challenge parents to do is to simply do the work, right? Engage your child where they are and take them where you want them to be, but go along with them for the ride. And so for me, the mentorship I do, I'm a member of the Silverback Society here in New Orleans, where we mentor 8th grade boys and high school boys, young men throughout the New Orleans area in school, across the city, right? One of the things I have to say, though, and this is my challenge to men, we need you. Our kids need you. Mm-hmm. Our community needs you. Our kids' future needs you, right? So I also say that because if you're a Black man specifically and you have a problem with the way things are going, but you're not involved in any way, shape, or form in mentoring young boys, some way, somehow, you can't really come to the table and talk to me about the problems. I don't really care. I remember this about Malcolm and Martin, right? As much as those two brothers had the very same mission, they have very different methods.
Right.
And that's okay, because guess what? The United States military is not just one branch.
Right.
We can't all be in the Army. We can't all be in the Navy. We got to have different soldiers in different areas so that they can fight the fight. So, you know, first and foremost, I call our brothers that you got to get involved. You got to be involved because our young brothers need you, because our families need you, because our cities need you. But then I call out our parents, right? Specifically, make sure you're taking time with your child, 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, to sit down and talk to them about what being Black means, and point out to them notable Black figures. Because that's what I think we're really losing. We're not teaching our kids the reality of the excellence of Blackness. That we are excellence. We come from excellence. But if we don't point it out to them, all they're going to see is some of the ignorance that's out there.
So the title of this talk is called Black Man, You Deserve to Be Whole, Mind, Body, and Soul. And that is a great segue, because I don't know that I talk to Black men on a regular basis that know how to define what it is to be Black other than in the negative. So let's get into that part of the conversation. How did you find wholeness? Have you found wholeness?
Well, I mean, I think we have to think about, you know, well, like what does wholeness mean? You know, I mean, I think we can come to a level of peace about our progress towards that. For me, you know, I think about the difference between health and wellness, right? It's kind of makes me think about that. I mean, I can tell you that I'm healthy, you know, in, say, my mind. I can say I'm healthy in my body. I can say I'm healthy in my spirit, in those things. But I may not be healthy in all three. And, you know, one may be in a work in progress. So, like, when I say wholeness in that sense, you know, I think that we're working towards health, being healthy in all those areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think that for all of us, you know, we're in the we're always, I think we're all in the process of going towards wholeness. And I think maybe the best that we might, you know, I mean, somebody might get to that point, but for many of us, you know, it's something that we're striving towards, you know, throughout most of our lives. And so, but I think the key is the awareness that we need to be balancing ourselves in a variety of areas in our lives. Because I think, you know, many of us are, you know, cultured to what I like to call a Descartesian way of, you know, way of thinking, where we compartmentalize everything. And so part of wholeness is seeing, part of being towards wholeness is being able to see how things are connected. How things are connected together. Everything, you know, from the way we treat our minds, the way we treat our bodies, the way we connect with our spirits and with other people and with the earth, it's all connected. You cannot just focus on one area and call yourself whole. So I know for me, you know, I try to be very purposeful in doing honest assessments of myself. Right, looking at where I am in my mind, looking at where I'm in my body. How are those things going, and taking action, right, to go towards that, you know, the positive direction with that. Now, I got to say this real quick. You know, many of us, just like, you know, many of us say we want to do that, but we don't necessarily have a plan, right? It's just like when people make, you know, New Year's resolutions. You know, I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to start going to the gym. I'm going to start, you know, I asked a kid one time, you know, what's your New Year's resolution? She said, I'm going to do better, you know. What does that mean, right? You know, how are you going to do better, right? And so to Brian's point, you know, I think that in order for people to go in that direction, you can't necessarily do it by yourself, right? We're all connected, just like those parts of ourselves are connected, right? You know, I like I like what young brother says, Dr. Stephen Thomas. He says Black man's health is a shared responsibility, and it requires collaboration between healthcare providers, policymakers, and community leaders to exact meaningful change, right? You can't do it by yourself, right? You know, we sing the song at church that I need you, You need me.
Mm-hmm.
We're all a part of God's body. In the African, in African philosophy, we call it Ubuntu, right? I am because you are, and you are because I am. Yeah, right. And so, so I understand that part of me going towards wholeness is making up my mind to be a part of a community where we help each other to be the best we can be. And guess what? That means I can't just sit here and receive. That means I need to take action for my own self, but I also need to mentor. And let me say this. And Brian, you mentioned, we need you. You talked about the black man. Listen, this cannot be an option. We don't have time to be playing. There are forces that's trying to take us out. This is not optional. We have to do it. We have to help each other. We've got to do it. It is crucial. It is essential. It is a must. Okay. I'll let Brian go out. I can say.
So Brian, how do you then create the camaraderie? So there are, you guys are part of a fraternity and you have that brotherhood, that fellowship that you do regularly. I see the pictures on Facebook all the time. Y'all get together, y'all do it up. But how do we create that same camaraderie that doesn't exist in gang activity, that doesn't exist in poor and bad behavior? What does that look like? How do we cultivate that?
So ironically, that is exactly what gang cultures and criminal enterprises do. They recreate the actual closeness and love that we think only happens in these healthy environments, right? Dr. Naim Akbar talks about the fact that in essence, in impoverished neighborhoods, that's what gang culture does. If me and Patrick are homeboys, right? If I'm the big homie, that's my little homie. Well, if somebody mess with him, I'm gonna take care of that for him. If he need to eat, I'm gonna make sure he eat. If he wants some new clothes, I'm gonna put him on so he can make bread, so he can do what he gotta do. If he needs somewhere to sleep, he gonna stay at the crib until he get on his feet, right? That's the same things that we expect healthy, positive environments to do. And what we unfortunately have forgotten is that that's the very thing that we have somewhat turned our backs on, right? Because we've bought into this, uber American, westernized ideal of like family, which is very, very much anti the African ethos that which we come from. Even to the point, if you think about it, the ideal of just making more money is the most anti-Black concept that probably exists. The African ethos is not about material gain. It's about the survival of the community. Ubuntu means what? I am me. I am here because of you. So if I do good and practice well, we do well together.
Right.
But if I do bad, it's gonna come back on my man, right? And that's why in New Orleans we've had so much of the retaliatory killings, because that's what happens, right? We buy into something, I got to get back. And so one of the things Brother Patrick was saying was that you think about where this oneness comes from. Well, first and foremost, and Dr. Akbar in his book, Akbar's Papers in Black Psychology, African Psychology, he talks about the three parts of the human that we have to deal with. It is the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. And so to go back to the very core of what we have to deal with the fact that young Black men engage in some things because they are mentally looking for stimulation. New Orleans is the only all charter school system in our country.
Right.
And even just recently hearing an assessment of the system, it clearly misses the fact that the system does not create the intellectual inquiry necessary in Black boys and girls in this city that is necessary for their survival. So we have to stimulate young Black boys and girls. Early work by Kobe Cambone, Brother Kunjunfu, Dr. Joseph White, Dr. Naim Akbar, Wade, it was like all of the Black psychologists that broke this work. What they did was they showed that there is something about a little Black kid that comes out of the womb ready to learn. And what do? We start to kill their learning spirit. So, and even if you look at the data behind what happened with Head Start programs, right? Which Dr. Akbar highlights the fact that what happens in these Head Start programs is that these conservative Republicans like to put these programs out there to say that they're going to help Black people. Then when they start helping Black people, they do what? Cut the funding. right? So you give Head Starts to the Black and brown communities and poor white communities, right? They give these things to them, and then once they start to close, they have to say, "Oh, whoa. We ain't mean for that to happen like that," right? So one, we have to get back to actually creating the intellectual inquiry in young Black boys towards the intellectual abilities. Dr. Calvin Mackey here in New Orleans, a STEM Nola, he says that we've got to do exactly what folks did with Peyton Manning, LeBron James, and Tiger Woods. You didn't wait to give Peyton a football at 18. You didn't wait to give Tiger clubs at 18. You didn't wait to give LeBron a basketball at 18. We need to give our boys at 3, 4, and 5 science kits. We need to give them aviation lessons. We need to put them in front of geology and all these different things to find their natural inquiry, right? So the mental stimulation is what has to happen first. Spiritually, and let me go spiritual last because that is so full of it. Just a fullness, right? But the physical, right? Our physical bodies, and me and Patrick talk about this all the time. We're both big brothers. We work out. We like being strong. We don't always like being this big. But when I played ball, I got bigger playing ball, and I got bigger in grad school, right? But the reality is that we have to take care of our physical bodies, right? So why have we in New Orleans, these same schools, right? PE, not really a thing. The middle school system in New Orleans, right, was huge in terms of allowing our Black boys to engage in sports, athletics, after school cares, and extracurriculars. That's gone. So now what do you think is happening for a 13 or 14-year-old boy in New Orleans that ain't got any of those activities to begin to build some of the dreams that they once had? I'm going to go and I'm going to act up a little bit, right? So we have to get the physical piece, which, and I love when parents ask me about ADHD and they say, "Oh, you're a Black guy, you shouldn't." I say, hold on, I'm going to be honest with you. There's a real diagnosis of ADHD. Yes, it has been overdiagnosed. It has been oversaturated, but that does not move away from the fact that some of us have these diagnoses. Because the other side of it is the reality is that there have been some people in our communities who've done what? Benefited off these diagnoses. So it's the kind of polarities of it is that those in the middle require the diagnosis, get treatment, and they're fine. You got someone on the end who don't deserve the diagnosis, they get it. You got someone if they want the diagnosis because it helps them, right? But we have to think about the physical piece. We have to take care of our bodies. Food deserts, right? We got to make sure we got it. Look, that's what we say, bro, Pat. When we have our meat sometimes, we text it, "Hey, bro, I don't need that extra piece of chicken." Right. I don't always need that extra fried or whatever it might be, because that's the thing that pushes me over. So we got to take care of our physical body. So we got to eat right, got to drink more water, right? Stay away from the fried foods. In New Orleans, we got this seafood thing. We got to stay away from some of the high sodium. And really what that goes back to is we got to go to places that we know are going to take care of us, right? And then last one, spiritually, and I know Brother Patrick, he is a minister. I'm not a man of the club by training, but I am a person of faith. But I realized a long time ago, and I told my bishop this a couple years, I said, I had to realize that if I could stand at a concert, if I could jump up down at a football game or basketball game, and if I could do anything at Mardi Gras, I should be able to do the same thing in the search out of my faith. And so we understand that there's a U-shaped relationship for Black men specifically in terms of church. When we're young, we go to church. And then as we get older, what do?
Stay away.
We stay away, right? So between about 15 and about 40, right? And so that's the time we got to get it. We in school, we playing athletics, we in the band, we doing all these things, go to college, blah, 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 we move away from home. At about 35, 40 years old, and most people, if they get this right, why is it at about 35, 40, Black men start finding religion again? What y'all think happened?
Y'all middle-aged.
Some stuff starts happening about 35 or 40 that brings brother back to the church.
What?
Take a guess. Anybody? I'm looking at the comments. I'm on Facebook Live with y'all. Anybody in the comments want to know what do y'all think happens about 35 or 40 for Black men that bring them back to the church?
They find a woman?
Nah, we've been fine women, and then we're not gonna be we're not gonna be heterocentric. We're not gonna say fire relationship. Reality happens. We start having brothers who die. One of the homies, right? Or it's maybe somebody close to us, a little bit older, right? My oldest brother died at 50 of lung cancer, right?
Wow.
But what happened was I had homies who got killed when I was growing up. So it had already been to me. I got to watch out. But around 35 or 40, you get that first, Patrick, you tell me, you get that first partner or friend or somebody you know that dies.
Yeah,
and
that's
and that was
different.
Yeah, and look, they didn't have any real health issues, right? They could have been fine, but they had a heart attack, right? You find out they had hypertension, right? Or they had cancer and they didn't know. They just kept living their lives, right? So what happens then is now all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I got to get right. So between 35, 40 and that kind of retirement age, brothers start coming back to church and try to figure it out. And it could be some other things too. It might be a divorce. It could be somebody said lose a job. But usually it's that they have somebody close to them that dies close in age. And they start to realize, wait a minute, this kind of close. We about the same age. We do the same thing. We was just in the club last weekend together. Or we was just kicking it at the barbecue together. And so died. And so that spiritual piece, and I'm going to end on this. I've talked too much, right? That spiritual piece is the last we end on because that is going back to that African Ubuntu spirit is what? We are all spiritual beings, right? And if you're not connected to the grand architect of the universe, the great I am, however you want to put it, at some point you start to have that question, right? And so we have to get back to spiritually grounding ourselves, specifically as Black men, right? And understanding our role in seeing the God that's in us. So
one of the things that both of you talked about was mentorship, making sure that you're reaching back in your community and lifting up the generations behind you, and not even necessarily just the generations behind you, because you can mentor your peers as well. What do you say to the men in our age group, your age groups, who don't know how to mentor, that don't know what to do to speak to the youth? And I'll be really transparent. I'm in a situation where I have a 17-year-old son, and he certainly needs a mentor. He needs a mentor. He needs somebody who can reach him and actually hear him and be able to speak to him in a way that he can hear. But in my immediate community, that doesn't look like you, Brian. It doesn't look like you, Patrick. And what I have found is when I have reached to communities like yours, when I have gone to places like the 100 Black Men, they want the perfect mentee. They want the kid that wants to show up. How do you handle the kid or the adult that doesn't want to show up? And where do you begin to instill in those individuals what's needed so that they can carry the baton behind you guys?
I'll go. Well, I think so I mentioned earlier that that mentoring is an absolute must. It's not optional, right? So I don't know if there's any. I mean, I wouldn't say that there's some specialized training that somebody needs per se.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, being your authentic self and being genuine and connecting with a young man and teaching them a few things about what it means to be a man, right? And how to navigate certain issues he may have, right? That maybe, let's say, he is with a single mother. I mean, there's things that she may not know how to teach him. Teach him those things, right? I always, I mean, we could say, hey, hook up with some sort of organization in your network, right? That may have some sort of program. Get in that program and get connected with a young man, right? And that program may have some tools or whatnot to help you to be able to relate to that young man well. But really, for me, it is you being your authentic self, taking the lessons you've learned in your life about what it means to be a man, and teaching that to a young brother, teaching it to him, guiding him, showing him love, right? Showing them that you can receive love from another man, another man.
Mm-hmm.
That is manly, right? That is what it means to me. And I'm, we don't, like you said, we don't want to be heterocentric in that sense. But what I am saying is that really what it takes is the initiative to grab some young brother, who looks like he may need some help. Take him under your wing. Show him some things. Teach him how to play chess. Show him how to shoot a basketball. Show him how to change a tire. Show him how to tie a tie. Things of that nature. Expose them to stuff that maybe you wish that you had been exposed to. Expose them to some things that is beyond where they are. Open their horizon to something, right? I don't think it's some kind of special formula in that sense. But the reality is, if and this is, this is the idea. If every man in our community was to take, a boy, but obviously we may need to take more than one. Looking how things are looking, it may be challenging. It may take you out of your comfort zone. But you got to look at, to me, and this is me talking. To me, if you're interested in bringing, in retaining your community and building your community and giving it life and pouring life into it, you got to do it.
Say it, bro.
You have got. It's not optional, man. If you have a television and you look and see what's happening in our communities, if you walk outside and look and see what's happening in our communities, we got to do it. We can't sit up in the house and talk about, oh, look how these young people do. I say, ain't that the same? And get your behind up there and say something and do something and take them under your wing. They need you. We got to do it. I operate from the philosophy is, I want to bring to my community and leaving it better than what I left when I came. Every place I go, everything I do, I want to leave it better than when I came. And I think about the word Dr. King used all the time. If I can help somebody along the way, right, then my living will not be in vain. Listen, I don't know how to say it. We got to do it. And there's no special formula. We just got to do it.
Brian, I'm going to piggyback off of that a little bit and kind of shift your question a little bit. What do you say, Brian, to the Black man that does not think he has anything to offer his community?
So I was going to go there, actually. What I was going to say is, first off, we have to remember that everybody ain't trying to go to where we're trying to go.
Right. True.
I'm not interested in cats that want to use, want to manipulate, and want to deceive, right? And so I say that because reality of it is simple. The African proverb says, if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I'm more interested in going together. So what I would say is this, to Brother Patrick's point as he was articulating, is that if I'm going to mentor, I have to have the right spirit. I ain't got to have a lot of money. I ain't got to necessarily have a lot of stats, but I have the right spirit. Because what Brother Patrick said was exactly what happened. I'm going to shout out my uncle Edward Murray, big brother Ronald Stimmage, my brother Kevin Murray, rest in heaven, and all other men along the way. My dad was not in my life growing up. My parents were married for a couple of years. They got divorced. My dad chose not to be as involved as he probably could have been. He was actually a pretty successful person for what it's worth, right? But it was men who chose to pour into me in a way that would just give me enough of what I need to still be hungry for the next level. And then it was another brother, another man. And I admit that I struggled with relationships with older men specifically because of my dad. I didn't trust a lot of older men because I was like, if my dad didn't love me enough and care enough to be here for me, why should I think someone else would, right? And so as I began to work on that and understand that, no, I can have relations with men, and it removes the homoerotic nature of men having relations with each other, right? So it's not sexual, right? It's true love. It's true agape, right? It's true philia love, right? It's not eros. It's not sex. It's love for me as a brother, as a person. And so what happens is now, like you said, since when we get together as brothers in a fraternity or men in a community, I know we ain't trying to have sex with each other. We're here because we're concerned about the well-being of our community. So we're like-minded brothers. So the reality is that if a brother don't want to do the right thing, he need not apply. He should do what he's doing. He should stay away. He should not, because the last thing I want to do is see another kid violated or abused because of somebody's deceptive ways. Now, for the brother who is interested, I've done the research actually. It takes an hour a week, An hour a week is less than 0.67% of your week in terms of giving time to mentor. If every Black man, right, really cared and gave that hour, we would see a significant shift in the experience of our young Black men and boys on a couple of different levels. One, it would give them access to a Black man who has actually navigated the same systems that they're about to enter successfully. Secondly, it would show them that the pathway is there. It's not imaginary, right? It's not a facade. It's not a game. It's actually there. And then lastly, now you got somebody you can talk to about it. Now you have somebody you can actually reach out and touch and have that conversation when they say, yo, man, Mr. Patrick, look, I don't really like my history class, man. I don't care. And Mr. Patrick gonna say what? Man, look, let me show you why history is important.
Right.
But also let me show you why it's always important to do well and be successful in anything you try. Because if you really don't like it, but if you navigate and do it well, now you're done with it. And they can't say, well, see, you didn't do well in that, but you only did it well in this, right? And I take that narrative from when I played football. A lot of folks that, think about football players think a lot of football players are dumb and unintelligent. That's not true. The amount of information and the amount of things that you have to deal with as an athlete are so big and so huge that you can't be unintelligent. You may not attend to physics. You may not attend to geometry. You may not attend to statistics, or you may not attend to economic theories on supply and demand, but you cannot be dumb and be an athlete. Let me hold on. There could be some folks who just have a innate ability, right? But let's say for the majority, when we understand the bell curve and normal distribution, that for the most part, people are going to fall in the normal curve, right? So let's be honest with this. All it takes is for a brother to desire and care and be intentional. There are multiple spaces and places in New Orleans. There's the Mentorship Collective that has 4 different organizations under that umbrella. It's expanding to include more so that, once again, every program is not calling for the same thing. Young men and women also, I know we're talking about boys, but young men and women also need those relationships. So we need to be able to bring as many people to the table who want to do this work, who want to provide for our kids and provide a space for them if they don't have that parent or if they're just looking for the relationship. I'm a psychologist. But I think 3 Black male psychologists in the city. So I oftentimes, when I go out to the city, I say, if you want to be a psychologist, you're a Black man, you need to talk to one of us to start. To start at least. Now, you ain't got to be our friend. You ain't got to even rock with us for long, but we might be able to at least give you the push, the starting point to get you where you want to go, And so like Brother Patrick said, if you want to do it, they got opportunities to get it, but it starts with just a care and a desire. And to the final point Brother Patrick made is, I just can't. I don't like sitting in rooms anymore where all people do is talk about problems. I'm solution focused.
Absolutely.
I can only get so much time to talk about the problem because we know what the problem is.
Right, exactly. We do. We know what the problem is. So we got about 10 minutes left. If anybody in the audience has questions for these gentlemen, please drop them in the chat. We're happy to answer them. But my last question, unless we have other questions coming in, we are Moms of Black Boys. We are a coalition of mothers who are raising Black boys or who have raised Black men. How can we show up for you guys? I'm saying, Black man, you deserve to be whole, mind, body, and soul. How can I show up for you? What do you need?
I'm gonna jump off the porch first, Pat. Let me.
Go ahead.
So one of the things that I look at specifically is that we have to remember that we are not adversaries, right? And so what I oftentimes look at is that society has told us as Black men and women and Black boys and girls that too often we are actually adversaries, right? We get told about the double minority status of Black women. We're living in the age of the excellence of Black women. Black women are most degreed. Most new small businesses in America were opened by Black women. The data reinforces sometimes that we're supposed to be against each other when that's just not our nature. In African culture, the Black man and the Black woman are seen to be so integral to each other that we can't survive without each other, right? And even throughout slavery, the reality was that Black women was the the thing, right? The salve for Black men. And we've lost that. And so the first thing I say is we have to really honestly have conversations that are organic, that are honest, that but actually take us to reestablishing the healthy, complementary relationship that we truly have. So for me, it's to show up and not to assume that we're adversaries, right? And I ask women that all the time. I say, can we assume that we're here for good? Can we assume that we're here to help each other? Now, once somebody do some wrong, that's that, right? But if we start out with grace and love, right? Because I might make a mistake, right? And I would like grace. And then correct me with love, right? So now I know how to act, how to perform, how to behave in a way that does not offend, right? But I also say as a man, right, I have to lead with grace and love. I don't think that the first time a woman says something to me, it's in this earnestness or any negativity. But I think too often we've begun to practice this adversarial nature, and that to me is one of the most impactful things, right? And I think about that in my professional role, in my personal life, in my dating life, in my role as a girl dad. I try to remind her that she can have relationships with men, and that she should have relationships with women, and that she should be healthy and she should always speak her mind and tell people how she truly feels, right? We don't lie. So if you do something that's offensive, I'm going to let you know, but I'm also going to give you opportunity to fix it, right? So I want us to remove that adversarial thing. That's the first thing I ask for sisters.
Do you think that adversarialness exists between mother and son?
It can. And if you want me to get really deep, I think sometimes it's rooted in potentially issues that were based in the relationship with the dad or the son's relationship or lack of relationship with the dad or whatever could have happened. I think there's lots of reasons that happened. But I see oftentimes in therapy, young Black men who are angry and upset. And oftentimes if mom is the parent that's, domiciliary, they turn it to mom. And then mom doesn't diffuse or disarm. And then she inches it up. And so I know in my work over the last couple of years of some Black mother and son dyads, we've gotten to that point where we have to say, so why are y'all fighting? Well, she just doesn't let me do what I want to do. And I'm like, well, bro, you're like 15. Like, you can't just do what you want to do. Well, she told me I'm the man of the house. I'm like, oh, but you're not the man of the house because you don't work. You're not bringing in good grades. You're not taking out the trash. So none of what you're doing. And so oftentimes, like, I try to infuse a lot of humor in those moments to like highlight that. But I think sometimes, and remember, right, oftentimes when systems are acting upon us, we're not always aware. And so it takes sometimes for us to sit down and have a therapist, a clinician. Shout out that Black folks do need therapy and they can't have Jesus, or they should have Jesus and a therapist at the same time.
Come on,
right?
Come on.
But we have to sometimes have these conversations with professionals who can be unbiased but professional and can lead us down the path to some wholeness, some oneness, right?
Patrick, what do you say? What do you need from us?
Well, I like what Brian said, started with that, idea of not things being adversarial. And the reality is, I think what I see in a lot of relationships between, whether it be a mother or boy, or whether it be somebody in some sort of partnership, man, woman, or somebody who may be just a male in your family, maybe a, nephew or uncle, whatever. A lot of those things are being tempered by society's need for, how can I say, sensationalism.
Okay.
I think that sometimes, we look at what we see in the sensational world, and we begin to expect and to speak those things to the Black men in our own lives, right? So for me, I think a huge thing is to begin to speak those things about those men as you believe they should, and the way you want to see them be and how they should be, right? So like I always admire, let's say, a woman who maybe is a single mother, but she never breathes one bad word about this father to this son, right? Looking at how if a man is struggling with certain things, instead of saying, in the adversarial sense, you ain't good, you ain't got no good job, you can't do this, and you don't never do this, and you don't never do that, right? Well, what would it look like if we begin to speak in words of encouragement, and we begin to speak those things as we wish they were? I mean, I'm a big believer, of the power of the word. I mean, from a theological standpoint, in theological circles, we would say that there's power in the word because we're created in God's image, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because God has power in God's word, right, then we have power in the same word that comes as a reflection of that same power. And in that sense, we are now co-creators with God, right, in the world. If you want to see the best in the black man, begin to speak that word about this. Begin to speak positivity. Begin to speak, you are the head and not the tail. Begin to speak, you are more than a conqueror. Begin to speak, you are a great provider. Begin to speak, you are a great leader for our family. Begin to speak, you are a great father. You are great. Begin to speak those things, right, in the atmosphere, and allow that word to begin to transform, right? And I think, I do believe one of the reasons why, things are the way they are in our communities, unfortunately, is because we always talking bad about each other.
Yep. Black women ain't this. Black men ain't this.
Yeah, and it's and the reality is it's killing us. It's creating something that we don't want.
Mm-hmm.
It's creating a reality and that we are speaking our own selves. It's a real thing. That black people be hating on each other sometimes. It's a real and unfortunate thing. But if we can, if listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. One of the best things, one of the things that makes the black man feel the best is when a woman in his life say something good about him, and she believe in him, and she speak things into him, that he, and the reality is, he thinking that, man, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to be this, but sometimes life be beating the crap out of us, and when you hear that from that woman, you hear that from that mother, it does something on the inside of a man. I'm gonna tell you for real, it does something on the inside of a man, and it encourages him, and it pushes him to go harder. I know we out of time, but
man, we got like 8 more minutes. You said 7:15, huh?
We got a question in the audience.
Okay.
All right.
Can you speak to the importance of male psychology and not smothering boys as mothers? And before you guys answer this, I have an opinion on it, and I want to share it, and then I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and answer it, because I don't think I don't subscribe to the idea that mothers can't be soft with their boys, nor do I think fathers can't be soft with their boys. I think this idea that it's smothering or coddling is I think that it can be detrimental to who men are. And I'm not a man, so you guys can disagree with me and give your opinion. But I think that you, as black men, as men, period, you need that level of softness. I think that who a mother is and who a father is and how they show up together, the dichotomy of the roles matters.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you psychologist tackle that.
So I want to say that I love that she said the importance of male psychology, right? So my mentor, Dr. Joseph White, who's known as the godfather of Black psychology, he talked about the importance of us identifying the natural different psychological experiences that we have based upon our demographic makeup, right? And so if we're honest about it, Patrick and I are both from New Orleans, right? But we also had some different experiences that will color our vision and version and perception of the world. We have a lot of things in common, but there are going to be some very nuanced experiences that will definitely impact us in ways that could definitely be different, right? And I think what's important about that, especially when we talk about the idea of smothering, and not just mothers, right? But I think the idea of parenting in general is that we have to be honest that that's also a reactionary thing that is rooted out of our enslaved ancestors' history, right? The idea of smothering and keeping and protecting our boys in such a way that maybe it's not healthy, right? So what I think about is that that's why we have to instill in our young boys and young ladies, right, our ability to actually articulate and like communicate, right? I think so often, especially for little black boys, if you think about it, right? Little black boys, when they start going to school and start being boys, what we tell them, sit down, shut up, don't do that, don't do this, sit down, shut up, right? I tell people, look, Black could walk through Walmart, tell this mother sucker up, because I'm going to let you do like the white kids do, right?
Nope.
I'm not going to tell Blair she can't walk around the mall and touch stuff and see stuff, right? Now, I'm trying to get her not to break none, because Dad ain't got a lot of money, right? But when I think about it, she needs to be inquisitive. Little boys need to be inquisitive, right? And so I'm not yelling at her, stop. Like I remember, I know y'all had the conversation. When we go in this store, don't look at nothing, don't ask for nothing, and you better not touch nothing.
Right.
I'm not telling her that. Huh?
I just left the kids home. But go ahead.
well, I can't leave Blair home because then I gotta explain why I went and why I didn't take her and why she didn't get nothing when I came back, right? So it's easy to just take her and tell her no in the store. But I think what happens is that we have to be honest about ensuring that our young black boys and girls, and I say that because of the nature of the question, are able to communicate, right? And I really have to do the work when I work with families and parents to understand that their kids are smart. Teach them to communicate what they want and what they need. Give them the space to be able to take time, right? And I remember that because oftentimes I think we got rushed to try to say stuff. And I was like, Mom, I'm not ready right now. I need to think about it, right? And so I think what happens is we have to be honest that, as Brother Patrick said, in our communities, we have to speak life. I thought Brother Patrick's going to hit him with the life and death is in the power of the tongue, and those who speak shall eat the fruit thereof it, right? So if you speak death into a situation, it's going to be death. Just like Jesus told that fig tree, die. You will not produce any more fruit, and it did. We need to speak life into our kids. We need to speak life into our communities. We need to speak life into our relationships. And as we do that, and I like what the sister said, when she says she speaks to black men positive all the time, like it is. And this is what I was gonna say. Oh yeah. So I remember. Now this is that y'all may remember this, and I love when I get these memories from back in the day. Right, I was playing outside, right, and I was a little boy, and I was a chubby little boy until I started playing football. So I must have been maybe 11 or 12. So this lady, beautiful lady, walking out, she said, "You just old fine, strapping young man. You're gonna be fine when you get bigger, when you get older." All the little boys like, he ain't fine, he fat. And Brother Patrick, you know what? From that day forward, I was fine.
Yes, sir.
I've always been fine since then, right? And it was because this woman out of nowhere, Sister Kimberly, as she said it, she spoke something into me that I kind of knew. But her being a black woman, and my mom always told me I was smart and handsome, but then like I started to line up these opportunities in these spaces where, and I can say this beyond the shadow of a doubt, I've never had a black woman attempt to demasculate me. It's always been a black man. I've always had sisters who spoke into me, supported me, encouraged me, loved me, cared for me, covered me, and kept me. And so I can always say with beyond shadow of a doubt, I don't buy into the idea that we are adversaries, but I have seen it in my practice, right? I've seen it personally, but I've never experienced it, right? And I know because the reality is that it's some black women who may not like me. That's life.
Right.
But I've never had a black woman attempt to take my manhood, attempt to make me less than a man, right? And so to that question, I think that's the point about what we need to be able to do is have the communication about what we want as parents, right? Like, I want you to be smart. I want you to be intelligent. I want you to be this. I want you to do that, right? And then what do you need? What do you want, right? Because too often, and this is the reality for me, is too often we just give our kids things hoping they figure it out. But if you give a child a computer, you got to watch what he do with it. You got to guide him, right? You can't give him a computer and give him unfeathered internet access.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm not. We out of time, and I'm gonna give you guys closing remarks. But I'm gonna tell you, it's a little creepy for a grown woman to be telling a young man you fine and you gonna be all those things. Because if that was a adult man talking to a 12-year-old, we would be having a different conversation. So I'm a.
She wasn't looking me up and down. She was just saying, "You're a fine young man." And I think one of the realities to your point is I think that's also the difference between if I see a young lady, a little girl, I say, "Oh, you're a very pretty little girl," right? She wasn't trying to take me home. She just said, "Oh, you're a fine little boy," right? And I was cool with that. She didn't make me feel eerie. She didn't make me feel icky. But she made me feel good, though. I feel that now. Ooh, Lord. That just made me want. It ain't even this song.
It's the drink. It's the drink. It's the drink. Yeah, it's the drink. So we're out of time, but I do want to give you guys closing remarks. Patrick, what is it that you want the world to know? What do you want our audience to know? Black man, you deserve to be whole, mind, body, and soul. What is your last statement?
Yeah. So, I think, when I think about my medical training, I understood that. I begin to understand that illness, regardless of what it was, began to be a result of imbalance. Somewhere in the body, there was something that was imbalanced. And I think if we're gonna get to Black men, we're gonna help Black men to get to that level of balance and show that love. We have to promote we have to promote some things in our lives. I just want to offer just a few things real quick. Some things I think that we, if a Black man that's listening to this, hey, listen to this and do these things. If it's a Black woman, help the Black men around you to get to this point. One, help people to prioritize mental health.
Amen.
Super important. Brian said it earlier. Jesus and therapy. Come on, somebody. I wish I had something.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
I'm not that.
Hallelujah.
I'm sorry.
Hallelujah.
Number 2, incorporate regular exercise into your life. Stop making an excuse of it. You have time, the time you use it on Facebook and whatever. Number 3, maintain a balanced diet. Okay. Fruits, vegetables, lean, water. Somebody say water.
Water.
Bringing half your body weight in ounces of water every day. Cultivate strong social connections.
Some of us are supposed to be drinking half our body weight in water, but go ahead, Patrick.
Hey, we can talk about that a little bit. Practice stress management techniques. Okay, mindfulness, meditation, whatever that looks like. Prioritize regular health screenings.
Amen.
Checkups. Limit alcohol consumption. Tobacco limited. I'm not saying, you can't have a little, keep the party going. Limit that. Get adequate sleep. Super important. Engage in activities that bring joy and fulfillment. Do something you like to do. Don't just get stuck in stuff and just be miserable. And lastly, let me say this. Advocate. Become somebody who advocates for systemic changes and addresses social determinants of health. If you can do, this is just a few things, some few of my thoughts. And with that, I wish that, I want everybody to be blessed. I want us all to be blessed. And if I can ever help anybody, you can hit me up. I'm on social media at Whole Kingdom Wellness, and I'm happy to answer any question, help you with any of those things. And I'm glad to have this conversation.
All right, Brian, you up?
Bet that, man. Look, first off, it was great to meet you when we did over at the City of Love. Glad that you reached back to us and brought us on with you. So know that I speak for Patrick. I said, anytime you need us, anytime you want us, that we'll be there as best we can. So definitely appreciate you and love to you, sis, for doing this work and continue to do this work and putting us on. My go-to in this moment is a very simple phrase that I take from my mentor, Dr. White. He said, keep the faith. What I added to that was change a life and save a mind. We must keep the faith in ourselves that we have everything we need to do what we need. That means we have to turn to each other so that we can support each other. When I say change a life, we have to be, as was said, the change that we want to see. So as Brother Patrick illustrated earlier, we as men and women, because a mentor can be someone not a man, right? A woman can mentor a man. So if you see that a young man needs to be mentored, step in for him, right? And mentor him, right? Be the change in someone's life that they need. And then lastly, save a mind. We have to reinstill that intellectual inquiry, that thirst for knowledge, that hunger for intelligence, that excellence that we really have within us. Remember, we made it through slavery when they gave us Burlap Saps and chitlins. And now look at us, riding Bentleys and eating
chitlins.
Nah, I ain't no chitlins. We ride Bentleys and we eating filet mignon. You know, we eating crab legs, right? Ain't that what they say? And we eat crab legs, right? So go out and do the work. Keep the faith, change your life, save a mind. Much love to you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Like you said, I echo that. I ditto that. It has been a great pleasure to get to know the both of you. I have truly enjoyed this conversation. Black man, you deserve to be whole, mind, body, and soul. And we believe it. You know, this is our fundraising month here at Moms of Black Boys United. This is the kickoff event. Text to give MOBB U to 44321. We pride ourselves here at MOBB United as being a resource and a voice for our Black men and boys in our community. And we want to be able to continue to have these conversations and continue to really get live feedback from our Black men who are doing it up in the community. Thank you guys for being such a great example to your community and the world. Join us next week where we talk to Divine Karama, Grammy Award winning hip hop artist and motivational speaker. You guys have a great night.
Shout out Black History Month. Do something for Black people.
Amen.
Make white friends give you something, a gift.
Yeah. All that. Good night, y'all.
God bless.